Good morning from Rome on the day Pope Francis offered his first Sunday Mass since being elected to the papacy on Wednesday. The location was the small parish church of St. Anne within the Vatican. And these were the incredible scenes afterward. In what seemed to be a spontaneous act, Pope Francis chose to meet and greet everyone who had attended Mass. And then the new Holy Father took off through the St. Anne's Gate to meet the vast crowds in the street. That's actually beyond the Vatican's border and into Italy. The crowds were clearly delighted. The Vatican police were clearly surprised. And if there's one thing we've learned in the first 4 days of this papacy, it's to expect the unexpected. Welcome back. Top of the morning to you on this St. Patrick's Day. I'm Colleen Carol Campbell, and you're joining us just minutes before the new Pope will deliver his first Angelus address. Here with me is Father Raymond D'Souza and Dr. James Hitchcock. Father, what do you make of those scenes we saw after this Mass that Pope Francis celebrated?
Well, it was a bit like a parish priest who stands on the steps of the church and greets everybody as they went out. You know, it's been a long time. In a certain way, we're going back to those scenes in 1978 when John Paul was elected. He was a young pope. He was from another country, and he did exactly these same scenes. But that was 35 years ago. And you know, for John Paul's last few years, he was unable to do that sort of thing. And Benedict, elected at 78, was not his style. So it's been a long time since people have seen the Pope robust, moving around, greeting people, and so forth. This reminds me a lot of the scenes I saw on television later, and of John Paul's first few days as Pope back in 1978. And the people are clearly delighted with it.
Jim, it was kind of striking. Not only did he greet what looked like every single person, and maybe a few more who might have snuck in through the back door, who had been packed into that little Church of St. Anne, but also kind of bolting toward the crowd, and in a move that clearly his own security personnel seemed a little unsure. Do you think there's going to be some change we're going to see over time as Pope Francis gets used to all of the security demands of the office, or do you think this is the force of the man and his personality, and the papacy will have to adjust to him?
Well, I'm inclined to think it's the latter. I think the Pope tells the security what to do, not vice versa. He obviously is not worried. He's not intimidated by this. He feels at ease in the crowds. He exchanged words, it looked to me, with almost every person who came up. Another thing I'd like to note at the Mass, which I thought was quite striking, is he spends an extraordinary amount of time at the elevation. When he holds up the sacred host and when he holds up the chalice, he holds it up much longer than I think most priests ordinarily do, which is an interesting sign of his Eucharistic devotion.
It's an interesting blend, isn't it, of the reverence and the closeness to the people as well.
Yes, exactly.
Father Raymond, let's talk just a bit about the Angelus. What do we expect to see today?
Well, first of all, this is a regular Sunday occasion. Wherever the Pope is in the world, if he's here, Castel Gandolfo, or traveling, there's always the Angelus on noon on Sunday. So in a certain sense, since February 28th, when there hasn't been the Angelus, it's been a bit of a regular part of Catholic life that's been missing. But the Pope comes to the window, he'll say a few words. John Paul used to use it to speak on certain themes he would develop over a course of weeks. Benedict used it as a kind of miniature Sunday homily, reflection on the readings. We'll see what Pope Francis, probably on his first day, it'll be not so much what he's going to do always, but speaking about his election this first week. And then the leading of that beautiful Marian prayer, biblical prayer, the Angelus. And then after the Angelus, there's usually a 3 or 4 different greetings in different languages. And then the Pope goes in and has his Sunday pranzo. So that's what we'll see. Of course, this being his first appearance since Wednesday, it's going to be a little bit unusual.
Absolutely. And we see already the crowds in the square are huge. I know this morning I went through a little jog around there around 7 a.m. and I was already seeing people beginning to converge. So I think this is obviously the excitement over a new Pope, but I think Pope Francis seems to be connecting in a particular way with people. Have you seen that, Jim, in your time here in Rome?
Absolutely. There had been a rumor circulating in 2005 that he was a very austere person. Somebody started to rumor that he was never seen to smile. Well, no rumor could be more utterly false.
Right.
The Pope who claims the Church clearly seems to be at ease with everybody in whatever situation he finds himself in. I was watching all those people coming out of the church this morning, and each one of them received his personal attention, he smiled, he embraced them, changed a few words. It was quite remarkable.
I don't think I actually see that from closeness with the people. I was not out jogging this morning at 7 a.m. This my family and friends will not be surprised to hear. But
you didn't have a 14-month-old waking you up at 5,
that
so
could
you
be.
might as well just get up.
Yes, you might as well get up and rest. But today is the Rome Marathon, which means half of the city, from the other half of the city to here, you can't get from here to there, at least not by bus or by car. The roads are closed. So it's a little bit, it's a tribute to the people who got here that must have either walked or you got an early start. And there's a huge number in the square. It's going to be very festive. Some of the people who get to the square early who are not veterans sometimes will take a spot of the square they think is a very good place and no one else is there. The reason no one else is there is because there's parts of the square you can't see the window from. The parts closest to the window. So, but now I think the whole square is full, and they've got the big screens down there too, so everybody can see.
And Father Raymond, just give our viewers who don't know what the Angelus is, just a quick sense
The
of
Angelus,
what that...
it's a Latin, it comes from the word Angelus, meaning angel, and it's that prayer that begins, the angel of the Lord declared unto Mary, and she conceived of the Holy Spirit. So there's 3 verses and responses, and they are basically the dialogue between the Archangel Gabriel and Mary at the Annunciation. So the angel of the Lord declared unto Mary, and she conceived by the Holy Spirit. Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be it done unto me according to thy word. And the word was made flesh and dwelt amongst us. And then there's another Marian prayer that concludes it. And this, in traditional Catholic piety, you would pray the angels at noon every day, or even 3 times a day, 6 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. So if you're in a city and you happen to hear that the church bells, especially cathedral bells, are ringing at noon and at 6 p.m. and you wonder why, those are called the Angelus bells that ring. And so it's a beautiful prayer that recalls the moment of the Incarnation that the Archangel Gabriel tells Mary she's to conceive. And that prayer, which is a traditional noontime prayer, is sort of underscored and highlighted here in Rome with the Pope, starting with Pope Paul VI coming to the window to give the Angelus address.
So it's Paul VI. Jim, can you tell us a bit more about how that developed? Father Raymond just mentioned where
I
this
can't give you
particular
a detailed history of it. It became a very popular prayer during the course of the Middle Ages. Marian piety developed rather rapidly, but especially in the 13th century, Marian piety really expanded, much of it under the influence of St. Francis of Assisi, whom the Pope, of course, has taken as his patron. And when the Angelus became established as a regular daily practice, I really can't say.
I think that in terms of Pope Paul VI, as the Church moved into the media age, there was a desire to create regular occasions where he could speak. So the Wednesday audience and the Sunday Angelus, and then of course his masses. So if he wants to reflect on anything, he's got 2 regular appointments a week where he can make a statement. So for example, if there's a tragedy in some part of the world, if there's some kind of international news item, the Pope doesn't have to call, as it were, a press conference, which he doesn't do anyway. But he has regular, twice a week chances to address himself to matters of the news, and then of course the rest of the time he's able to teach on those subjects he wants to teach on.
Well, we go to the Angelus address in just a few minutes, and that will be in Italian. Our translator this morning, again, is Mary Shovelin, who did an excellent job for us at the Mass at her parish of St. Anne. It's your parish. Exactly. What was it like to watch the Holy Father not only celebrate Mass at your parish, greet everyone afterward, which I heard that is not even always done on a regular Sunday at that parish, and then finally take kind of make a beeline for the crowd?
Well, I think we all witnessed it together. I mean, I'm a parishioner there, and it was certainly special to observe. But I think just as Catholics, we were watching this saying, this is the Pope. He's standing outside of the church like your parish priest does, greeting us. The kids would come up. He would just affectionately, like an uncle, would just pat him on the head, and and he would say, pray for me. He'd ask every one of the little kids to pray for him. And so it was very pastoral. And if that's any indication how he's going to be universal pastor, this is amazing. So.
There was something else I thought, like a parish priest, you could see people who came up and they were telling him something. Like, something's not right here. I want you to take care of this. And he'd say,
my granddaughter needs to come for a baptism. When should we call the office? Kind of thing that you usually
church was a little cold this morning.
Father Raymond, to what extent would a pastor at home see this and begin to I mean, is there anything in the Holy Father's example that you might start taking?
Priests and bishops watch what the Pope does, and you can try and imitate it. I think most priests do actually stand at the back and greet people after Mass. It's kind of part of, it's not liturgically required, but it's a kind of a common thing. But maybe some of those who are wondering whether it was valuable to do that, or whether they got a little tired, or the people were annoying them with their questions, will maybe say, okay, I'll make an effort. So if I could make a comment, just it's not, I wear the same thing every day. I come here, I'm always in black.
Yeah,
Sometimes
you got it easy with the wardrobe.
it's very easy, but I thought that our viewers should know that our ladies here, we've got St. Patrick's Day green and Lenten purple.
Lenten
and so,
purple. Thank
so
you.
no
You know
matter
who the more
what-
serious,
I've got Lenten purple.
Lenten purple. So whatever your preference is for, it's a St. Patrick's Day, and it's also a Sunday, fifth Sunday of Lent, and so we're very. I'm admiring of our liturgical precision here on the set this morning.
Well, we know St. Patrick's Day is a big day of celebrating in the United States and, of course, in Ireland. But it's interesting to see this crowd. I mean, great festivities, revelry,
I don't
great
think
joy.
I don't think St. Patrick has a great resonance down there in the square.
No, but I
we'll-
think it's
I
interesting
don't know
just
what the
how.
liturgical significance of the yellow hats is. But
But if
Well,
you
that's
see
the
that
Vatican.
crowd, what are your thoughts on that crowd? It looks like a young and obviously jubilant crowd.
It's always moving to see St. Peter's Square. The symbolism of Bernini's colonnade, which he designed for, there's a twofold significance. One is if you look at it from above, it looks like it could be like a keyhole, so the
Right.
keys of Peter. And the other one is, of course, the arms extended out to the whole world. And it's always moving to see people from every country in the world there in the square. And that, of course, on an occasion like this is special, but often it's every Sunday. There's always people coming to visit Rome. So that symbolism of the colonnade, the great arms of Bernini's colonnade going out to embrace the world, it's lived out in reality, not just as a symbol, because there are people there from literally all around the world. And today, especially, I would imagine, if we look carefully, we'll see a few more South American and particularly Argentinian flags than we might normally see.
And of course, the people, in a sense, are being blessed by the great array of saints on top of the whole wall.
Beautiful
Yeah, Dr.
symbolism
Hitchcock,
indeed.
yes, all the saints are, you can probably see them over Colleen's left shoulder, maybe, depending on what shot we have, the saints there in the colonnade. So a great crowd that's gathered, and the Pope will arrive in just a few minutes. Usually that Angelus starts right on, it's a very punctual appointment. So, however, if Pope Francis is still stuck down on the, on the street, we might have to wait for him, but the Angelus doesn't start without him, obviously.
If very many Argentinians show up, he might say, "Didn't I tell you to stay home and give the money to the poor?" which is what he did say.
Well, he said to the
really?
bishops.
Yes,
he said to the bishops, in fairness.
He said, "Don't spend a lot of money coming here." He said, "Give the money to the poor."
Oh, wow. Well, we've seen that as a constant theme already in his very short pontificate. Any final thoughts, Mary, as we're looking at this crowd, waiting for this Angelus?
We're looking at the crowd. We're looking at the window.
Here he comes. And
And
now
the last time we looked at this window was
We're gonna-
when Benedict closed it. So
we're going to join our Holy Father, Pope Francis, now in praying the midday Angelus.
Fratelli e sorelle,
dear brothers and sisters,
buongiorno.
good morning.
Dopo il primo incontro
After the
di
first meeting
mercoledì scorso,
on last Wednesday,
così posso rivolgere di nuovo
now I can greet you once more, offer you my greeting to everyone gathered here,
di farlo di
and I am happy to do this on Sunday,
giorno del Signore.
on the Lord's Day.
Questo è bello e importante per noi cristiani.
This is important for us Christians, to meet each other on Sunday, to greet each other,
Nella piazza,
to talk with one another as we're doing here in the square,
alle dimensioni del mondo.
a square that embraces the whole world. On this, the fifth Sunday of Lent,
Il Vangelo ci presenta
the Gospel presents us with the episode of the woman caught in the act of adultery,
salva dalla
who Jesus saves from condemnation to death, the death penalty.
di Gesù.
Jesus' behavior here strikes me. We don't hear any words of condemnation from him, but only words of love, of mercy, that invite us to conversion. Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. Dear brothers and sisters, the face of God is that of a merciful Father that is always patient with us. Have you ever thought of the patience of God, the patience that He has with each one of us? And that is His mercy. He's always patient with us. He understands us. He never tires of forgiving us if we know how to return to Him with a contrite heart. Great is God's mercy. So the Psalm says this morning. In these days, I was able to read a book by a cardinal, Cardinal Casper, a really good theologian, on God's mercy. And it did me a lot of good to read that book. He goes, now I'm not plugging his book or anything. That's not what I'm doing here. But it did me a great good to read this book. Cardinal Casper says in the book, to hear, to feel the word mercy, to feel mercy, changes everything. It's the best thing we can feel. This changes the very world. A little mercy makes the world, makes it less cold and more just. We need to understand well this mercy of God, this merciful Father who is very patient with us. Let us recall the words of the prophet Isaiah, who said, if our sins were scarlet, God will make them white as snow. Mercy is such a beautiful thing. I recall when I was just ordained a bishop, Our Lady of Fatima came to Buenos Aires. We had a very large mass out for all of the faithful. I went to be a confessor at that mass. At the end of the mass, I got up and I had to go confirmation. I had to go confirm some young people, and a very elderly woman, very humble elderly woman came to me. She was over 80 years old, and I gazed at her and I said, Grandmother, he goes, that's how we talk to each other there in my country. She said, Grandmother, would you like to go to confession? And I asked her, but surely you haven't sinned. And the elderly woman said, yes, we have all sinned. And I said to her, maybe the Lord won't be forgiving today. And she said, the Lord is always forgiving. She said, if the Lord did not forgive everything, the world would not exist anymore. I wanted to ask her, did you study at the Gregorian University? That is true wisdom that's given by the Holy Spirit, that interior wisdom. Let us never forget, God is never tires of forgiving us. Let us never forget that. Say, Father, what is the problem? The problem is that we tire. We do not want to ask forgiveness. He'll never tire of forgiving us. But we do tire of asking for His forgiveness. Let us never tire of doing this. Never. He is a loving Father who forgives always, who has a heart full of mercy for all of us.
E anche noi
And we too
impariamo
learn
ad essere misericordiosi
to be merciful
con tutti.
with everyone.
Invochiamo
Let us
l'intercessione
invoke
della
the
Madonna,
intercession of the Madonna,
che ha avuto nelle sue braccia
who had
la
in her
misericordia
arms
di Dio,
mercy itself,
fatta uomo.
made man.
Adesso
Now,
tutti insieme
let's pray together the Angelus.
Angelus Domini nunciavit Mariae concepis et Christus. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostre. Amen. Ecce ancilla Domini, fiat mihi secundum. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Santa Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostre. Amen. Et habitavit in nobis. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Santa Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostre. Amen. Ora pro nobis, Santa Dei Genitris. Fili et ficiam promissionibus Christi. Oremus. Gratiam Tuam quae sumus, Domine, mentibus nostris infunde, ut qui angelo nuntiante Christi Filii Tui incarnationem coniovimus, per passionem meius et crucem, a resurrectionis gloriam perducamur, per eundem Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto.
Sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
Pro fidelibus defuntis requiem aeternam dona eis Domine.
Et lux perpetua lucea eis.
Requiescant in pace.
Amen.
Sit nomen Domini benedictum.
Ex hoc nunc et usque in saeculum.
Aiutorum nostrum in nomine Domini.
Qui fecit caelum et terra.
Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater et Filius et Spiritus Sanctus. Rivolgo un cordiale saluto a tutti i
To all
pellegrini.
pilgrims gathered here.
Grazie della
Thank
vostra
you.
accoglienza
Thank you for the welcome you have given me and for your prayers for me. Thank you and pray for me. I warmly embrace all of the faithful of Rome and extend to you in a special way who have come from all over Italy and the world, and to all of those who are joining us through mass communications, means of mass communication. I chose the name of the patron of Italy, St. Francis of Assisi, which shows the great bond I have with the people of this land of Italy. This country where, as you know, we have the origins of my family who come from here. Jesus called us to be part of a new family in His church, in God's family, walking together on the path of the gospel. May God bless you. May Our Lady protect you. Don't forget this. The Lord will never will never tire of forgiving us, but it is us who tire of asking forgiveness. Have a great Sunday and have a great lunch.
This morning. Still with us is Father Raymond D'Souza and Dr. James Hitchcock. We'll start with you, Father Raymond, your reaction to the Angelus address?
Well, again, a very confident Pope. You'd think he's been doing this for many years. On his first Sunday, seemed very much at ease to speak extemporaneously again to the crowd. As you can see at the end, he was going through his papers, which he had not used very much. Then he found where the Angelus was. I thought it was a very beautiful address, and he stressed that point over and over again, the mercy of God. We tire of asking for God's mercy, but God never tires of asking it. And what's interesting, there's a moment where I think he realized, being Pope was slightly different, because he was talking about this book by Cardinal Casper. And I think he had in his mind, next week I'm going to get 100 books from Catholic publishers sent into the papal apartment, because if they think they can get a plug from the window on Sunday, they're coming. So then he said, I'm not doing that. I'm just telling you what I've been reading. And then, of course, another beautiful moment where he quoted a great theologian, a very accomplished man, Cardinal Casper. And then his next quotation was from this anonymous grandmother he remembered from 20 years ago in Buenos Aires, who had that sort of the wisdom of, if you want to say, the common faith, the wisdom of a faith that trusted in God's mercy. So I thought that was very beautiful. He spoke about his experience, what he's reading, and then he blessed the people. The only thing I would say is a bit surprised about is that I think partly he's stressing that he's the Bishop of Rome. He only spoke in Italian, and I presumed that he was going to speak in Spanish to the Argentinians and the others who were here, but he chose only to speak in English this morning, in Italian. Mary's translation was so good I thought he was speaking in English, but only speaking in Italian this morning. But I thought a very beautiful encounter with the Bishop of Rome with his people this morning.
Yes, he really emphasized that point. We can see still these crowds. Wonderful response he seemed to get, Jim, from the crowd, and we hear the bells tolling. I saw balloons go up, a lot of cheers. Cheers, especially when he was talking about God's mercy, seemed to really resonate with the crowd.
It seems to me he touched on what is in many ways the crucial issue of our time, and that is people don't understand the concept of forgiveness, because I think the prevailing cultural attitude is I should be accepted for what I am. Mm-hmm. I really don't have anything to ask forgiveness for. And this puts God into kind of being the position of a harsh judge. But as he points out, God offers us endless forgiveness, but we in turn have to ask for it.
And he also spoke, he said at one point, making the world less cold and more just. And we're seeing those themes emerging, right, Father Raymond, aren't we? Especially that personal warmth, but a focus also on some of the things he highlighted here. He mentioned humility once again.
And God's mercy. If you go back to Pope Benedict's first encyclical, Deus Caritas Est, he said that no society can be so just, and even if it was perfectly just, we would still need love, we'd still need mercy. Pope Benedict said that the heart of John Paul's pontificate was divine mercy. That's to understand all of John Paul, you need to understand divine mercy. And now Pope Francis is starting off stressing over and again mercy. The face of God is the face of the merciful Father. So you see a beautiful continuity at the very foundation of reality, at the foundation of creation, to say nothing of salvation and redemption, is this merciful love of God. So a beautiful continuity there with John Paul, Benedict, and now Francis in his first days.
Now, to what extent is that set by the fact that was the gospel reading today, and to what extent would that be his initiative?
Well, he did comment on the gospel reading. That was Benedict's custom. John Paul used to take sort of various themes. Benedict used to always start with the Sunday gospel, so Pope Francis did that. But even in his other addresses, he's spoken about this importance of mercy, and it's been said, although it's supposed to be secret, but many cardinals have commented, and it's been in the press, that when he spoke to the general congregation about what the needs of the church were, that was the theme of his address there, was the church showing forth the merciful face of the Father. So I think the fact that it was the reading for the fifth Sunday of Lent coincided nicely with the themes that he wants to underscore.
And Jim, another word he used was fraternal, and I've seen that used to describe him here in Italy, some of the newspapers. And he's making jokes here and there, and he's once again sort of putting the script down, as Father Raymond mentioned, has to even find his place, because he's very much setting a certain tone for his papacy. What's the significance of that, do you think?
Well, the word fraternal, of course, means brother, and actually the official name of the Franciscans is the Order of Lesser Brothers. And I think what he is stressing is not equality, obviously, in some kind of hierarchical sense, but equality in the Lord, this openness to everyone. I don't come to you as a judge. I come to you as a witness to divine mercy. We're, in a certain sense, all in this together, the spirit of fraternalism.
And is that difficult sometimes to balance when you are the Holy Father and there's a lot of, obviously, authority and sort of majesty that goes with this role, and at the same time, he seems very keen to emphasize that he's the servant of the servants of God?
It's difficult to balance. These first few days are the chance for him to introduce himself to the world as he would like, as he is. And that's exactly what he's doing in these first few days. And I think that's appropriate and fitting and actually quite delightful to all the people here in Rome. Over time, he's going to take on different elements of his role. And every man who comes to be Pope has certain aspects of his personality that underscore different aspects of the office. And so this is what we're seeing as Francis in his first days. And it may be that, a few months down the road, he'll have to present himself in different fora in different ways. But I think the joy of these first days is that he presents himself as he is. Cardinal Wojtyła, when he got elected Pope, he said, well, there must have been something about what I was doing as Archbishop of Krakow that is of service to the Universal Church. And I think Pope Francis is saying there must have been something of how I was Archbishop of Buenos Aires that is of service to the Universal Church. So let me do, at least in these first few days, what I did in Buenos Aires. And I think it's met with a lot of a very beautiful response from the people of Rome. And I think some of that will continue right throughout his whole pontificate, and other aspects of the role may come to the fore here or there. But I think for the first few days, let's enjoy these days, because as it were, the burdens of office have not yet come. He hasn't had to make any very important decisions yet. He hasn't had to sort of sort out any particular crises. So I think these first few days it's like when a priest comes to a new parish, you're never as popular as you are in the first day when everybody has all their hopes in you. So I think we should enjoy the days, and certainly Pope Francis is enjoying them, so we should take his lead, I think.
Jim,
there are reports from Argentina that sometimes seem contradictory, but I don't think they are, and that is very humble man, very open to everyone, at the same time not afraid to exercise authority, and was controversial to some people because he knew when to speak out and he knew when to be firm, and I think that clearly that pattern will follow in his pontificate as well.
Thank you both. And Mary, thanks again for the translation. Any thoughts you had on the message today?
Well, the message is beautiful. As Father mentioned, it was just in Italian today, but we have to remember that under Benedict's papacy, all of the papal addresses were given quite a range of languages, including Arabic and Chinese. And so what we can expect him to be speaking to the world in the languages of the world. And I guess my final thoughts would be, we're about to head into a very important week for this Holy Father. I think he's meeting the Argentinian president tomorrow. His pontificate is inaugurated on Tuesday, and the Mass, which we'll be covering. And then Friday, or sometime this week, he's supposed to meet with Pope Benedict XVI. So, again, history making. A Pope and a Pope Emeritus having lunch. I mean, we'll never see, who knows. But anyway, so it'll be a great week. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again for a good translation. Well, that's all for now. It's been quite a morning here in Rome. The new Pope's first Sunday Mass, the new Pope's first Sunday Angelus. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Colleen Carroll Campbell, and now it's back to Doug Keck in Birmingham. Doug?
And there you have it, the first Sunday Angelus with Pope Francis. Now, if you missed any portion of his first Angelus, well, it will encore at 10 a.m. Eastern Time this morning, and then again at 4 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon. And just a reminder, go to our website, EWTN.com, to check out the times that these events will happen in your time zone. And don't forget, we continue with EWTN Vatican Daily tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Time with Colleen Carroll Campbell, again encoring that evening at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's Vatican Daily. And that's Monday. And moving on to Tuesday, it's the big event, the Mass for the inauguration of the Pontificate of Pope Francis. New time now, note the time, Tuesday, 3:30 a.m. That's a new time, Eastern Time. It will encore twice, once at 6 p.m. and then again at midnight. Check out our website again to get the time in your area and on your particular EWTN network channel. And then again, there's the Mass of Thanksgiving for the election of Pope Francis, coming to us from the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception from Washington, D.C. That will be Tuesday at noon. Tom Nash and I will be back in the studio for that. And again, don't forget to download our free EWTN app. We had, I know, one day last week, at least 7,000 downloads. So it's great. iPhone, iPad, whatever you got, Android devices, and hopefully we're trying to make people aware that if you don't have cable, you don't have satellite, you can still watch us on the web, on EWTN.com, live streaming there, or even through Roku, another way to watch EWTN, or look for highlights on our YouTube channel on the web. And social media is part of EWTN. Follow us on Twitter at EWTN. And like us on Facebook. We're up over 170,000. Mother's Birthday is coming up in about a month. We need 30,000 more. That'll get us to 200,000 in honor of her 90th birthday. And look ahead for special programming as well as Holy Week programming coming up. And don't forget about the ncregister.com website for the latest updates in news. And I'm Doug Keck. Stay with us right here on EWTN for the most complete coverage of the Pope going forward. Thank you.